This is one of the most beautiful biographies of Jose Raul Capablanca, written by Miguel Sanchez, with a foreword by Andy Soltis, that is one of the greatest chess writers of our times. He is also a grandmaster, so evidently he knows more. But why I like this biography? Well, generally I show you some games, and this biography has a lot of games. But the stories behind are definitely more interesting. Please let me tell you a couple of stories that I think are very interesting. As I mentioned in other reviews, the books by McFarland have all these beautiful tables that show the results, but here there is a very interesting story. Obviously, the story is not confirmed historically, and the author did his historical research. But it tells us in any case. It seems that one organizer invited them, meaning Capablanca and Alekhine, to a beautiful dance of the period. And so while Capablanca was watching the dancers, Alekhine was mainly watching his little chessboard and following some variations. And this is very interesting, right? Obviously, the author says, look, the story is not so sure that it happened because Capablanca had his wife in that period there with him in London. But at the same time, his wife, it seems, was 4 months pregnant, so maybe she didn't go to that kind of cabaret dancing place. At the same time, and this is the interesting part, so the interesting part is that the story continues with the page later, in which says that there was a tournament, maybe in Buenos Aires, where Fischer was there and Rossolimo was there. In this case, both Fischer and Rossolimo are invited out to see also another dancing show. But Rossolimo watches the dancer, and Fischer is the one that follows a line of the Sicilian on his little pocket chessboard. Notice in the book we find also all the rules for one of the World Championship matches, which are very interesting because they tell us about the time control and what the prizes were in the time, showing that inflation is real. Now, let me show you another thing that is interesting. Throughout the book, we encounter many caricatures of that period published in different newspapers, and it's given an explanation to this. So this is very interesting because it makes a comparison between the Cuban Spanish language and what it meant. So here it practically says that in Cuba there was a kind of a hurricane or tornado that damaged many houses, and you see Capablanca that returns back with a lot of wood on his head. But in reality, those are called the tablas, and these tablas, which could be also board, in reality, it's a way for the Cuban Spanish to say draw, because it seems he came back from a tournament in South America where he made a lot of draws. And that's why he has tablas on his head. Again, this kind of historical research is exciting because if you don't have a time machine, here you're able to travel through time, okay, thanks to this book and the good research made. But let me show you one last thing. So while this picture show Capablanca in 1918, if I'm correct, in reality the story under show us something that is very, very interesting. For example, it seems that when Capablanca arrived in New York in August 1904, his chance to enter that club was facilitated by another Cuban gentleman that was obviously a businessman and donated a lot of money. So it shows that in that time, chess was in high regard not only as an intellectual sport or intellectual activity, but also of a high level, which means only people with money and with a certain standing in the society could belong to that club. So this kind of elitism maybe today is despised, but in that time probably was common. So what does this mean? That this book is actually bringing us back to the period not only in terms of chess games or results of the chess games, but also in the way they were living in that time. And that's why I find these books published by McFarlane very interesting, because they give me the story, how people were living in the time, which is difficult to know because who does have a grandfather or grandmother that is able to tell them what happened in 1918 or in 1904? Nobody, because they are all dead, right? And so if we don't study the history, we cannot understand how people were living in the time. Thank you very much.